Hi everybody. Today we want to review how to find slope and how to graph out of slope-intercept form. Okay, so this is one of the biggest things that we cover in 8th grade that you're going to definitely need to know how to use in 9th grade and then also in high school. So we really want to make sure we kind of have this down. So when we talked about finding slope, there's a lot of ways we could call it. So if we look on this worksheet right here, remember, slope is also known as the rate of change, the rise over run, the change in y over change in x, or right, just slope. And it's also represented by little n, okay? But the change in y and change in x is what we're going to talk about. So if you're given a table and we wanted to find slope, remember hopefully that we said it was going to be the change in y over the change in x, and we put those little triangles there so it looked like delta y over delta x, but it really just means change in y over change in x. We're just too lazy to write this all out. Okay, so make sure when we're finding the slope we go to the y numbers first, right? Okay, and we want to look at what's happening. We have to have a constant change going on here. So we're looking for what the change from -3 to -1 is, or what the change from -1 to 1 is, or from 1 to 3, or from 3 to 5, or so on. Okay? So if we think about it, if we're at -3 and we got to get to -1, are we getting bigger or smaller? Well, we're working our way out of the hole, so we're getting bigger. So we're adding, but we're adding how much? And we're adding 2 each time, so a +2. Okay. Now in class, I said sometimes we don't like to look at negatives. So if you wanted to jump down here and say, oh, well, what's the change from 3 to 5? Well, we're adding 2 there as well. So it doesn't matter where you do it, you should get the same thing, right? Even if I go back in here and go, what's the change from 1 to 3? We're also adding 2. Okay. So our change in y is a +2. And that goes over what our change in x is. So if we look on the x side, what is the change from -2 to -1, or from -1 to 0, or so on? Okay, and if I jump to the bottom and I look, what's the change from 1 to 2? Well, we're also getting bigger. We're adding 1 each time. Okay, so if I go back to the top, if I'm going from -2 to -1, we are increasing. We're working our way out of the hole. We're getting bigger by adding 1. Okay. So when you write your rate of change, or you write your slope, be careful. Make sure the y always goes on top. So what was happening in the change in y? It was a +2. So +2 over, what's our rate of change on the x side? 1. Okay, so our change is 2 over 1. Now you could leave that. Do remember, if it makes the whole number like this, 2 over 1 is really just 2. Okay. So the slope, the rate of change, okay, the rise over run is 2 over 1. Change in y over change in x. Let's look at another one. So if I have this table right here, and I want to know what is the change going on. If I'm going from 6 to 4, well, this time I'm getting smaller. How much am I getting smaller by? We're taking away 2. So it's a -2. Okay? Even if I jump down here, look at this spot, if I went from 2 to 0, I'm also getting smaller. I'm taking away 2, right? It should be the same. That's going to be the top part, so I know -2 goes over what? So look at my change in x. If I went from a -4 to 0, are we getting bigger or smaller? We're working our way out of the hole. We're getting bigger. We're adding. We're adding how much? We're adding 4 each time. Okay, and if I jump down here, let's say we went from 8 to 12. Well, yep, from 8 to 12 we added 4. So -2 over 4 is our slope. Okay, that's our rate of change. Now that will reduce. You can simplify that down to -1/2. Okay, so our rate of change, our slope is -1 over 2. All right. Now let's look in this situation. From 2 to 2, we had a change of how much? 0. On this side, from 6 to 3, we went down 3 spots. So our slope here, change in y is on top, would be 0 over change in x be negative 3. Now remember, this is a special case. Anytime we get 0 on top, we can divide by 0. 0 divided by anything turns out to be 0. So our slope is just 0. Okay? Alright, I want you guys to try this one right here. So try this one real quick. Okay, if we look at it, I'm going to go right here because that's to me the easiest spot. If I'm going from 3 to 9, I'm increasing and I'm adding how much? Adding 6. So 6 over, and then what's our change in the x spot? I went from 0 to 2, I added 2. So my slope is 6 over 2, which does reduce to 3 over 1. Or you could just really, say just 3. Okay? Let's look at 17. Okay, so my change in y, we are getting smaller. We went from 6 to 4, which is a negative 2. My change in x is from 3 to 3, which is a change of 0. So once again, it's the change in y over the change in x. So we get negative 2 over 0. Now this one you got to pay attention to. This is different than the one up here. So if the 0 was on top, we can divide by 0 and we get the slope of 0. If the 0 is on the bottom, you can never divide by 0. So the answer to this is what we call undefined. The slope is undefined. It cannot happen. Okay? So be careful in your assignment. Watch for those two. Alright, those are the tricky ones. Alright, I want you guys to try one last one. So let's do number 18. Okay, I'm going to jump in here. Once again, it doesn't matter where you go. It should be a constant change on the y side, constant change on the x side. So I'm going to come clear down here something where I see it's easiest. I'm going to go from 2 to 1. So if I'm going from 2 to 1, I'm getting smaller. I'm getting smaller by 1 spot. Come across from 2 to 5, I'm increasing. I'm getting bigger. I'm adding 3 each time. So the rise over run, or the change in y over change in x, or your slope, however you want to call it, is negative 1 over 3. And then that doesn't reduce. That's your final answer. Okay, so that was how we found slope off a table. Change in y over change in x. Alright, you're going to use that for the next part. So let's say they don't give you a table. They just give you 2 points now. So they just say you're looking for to find the slope between 4, 3 and 8, 6. Well, we just make a table out of this then. So remember, our first value is our x, our second value is our y. This is our x and this is our y, right? So when we make our table, here's our x, y. Make sure you put the x's under the x. So it's 4, 3. That's your first ordered pair. And then your second ordered pair would be 8, 6. Okay? Don't write 4, 3 down and then 8, 6 down this way. 4, 3 across, 8, 6 across. Okay, put your x's where they go, put the y's where they go. So just make a little table. And then you're going to do exactly what we did. What's the change in y over the change in x? So from 3 to 6, we're increasing, we're adding how much? We're adding a positive 3. And from 4 to 8, we're increasing, we're adding a positive 4. So there's my slope, 3 over 4. That won't reduce anymore. Okay, let's look at another one here. So if we have the 2 ordered pairs, 1, 3, and 7 to 5. So if we make a table, we have 1, 3, and 7, 5. Okay, so ask yourself, from going from 3 to 5, we're getting bigger or smaller. We're increasing by 2, so a positive 2. And on the x side, we're getting bigger by 6. So our slope is 2 over 6, which will reduce to 1/3. Okay. Okay, so there's our answer for that one. All right. Okay, I want you guys to do one. I'll set it up for you. So here's the xy. So we have -1, -2, and then we have 2, 7, right? Okay, now find the slope. Change in y over change in x. Okay, so if you think about this, if we're going from -2 to 7, if you need to draw a number line and picture it, okay, see it out. Some of us kind of struggle with this spot. So if we're going from -2 to 7, we're getting bigger, but by how much? We went from -2, we got to get back to 0, and then we got to go from 0 to 7, so we increased by 9 spots. Sorry, ignore that phone. So we got bigger by 9 times. So like I said, if you need to draw a number line, draw that on a number line. Okay, so we increased by 9, and then from -1 to 2, we increase by 3 times. So the slope here is 9 over 3, which does reduce to 3 over 1, or just 3. Okay? Alright, one last one of these. I want you guys to find the slope for number 5 here. Set the whole thing up. Find the slope. Okay, so this should go 2, -3, and then 0, -2. If we're going from -3 to -2, we are increasing, right? We're working our way out of the hole. We added 1, so a +1. If we went from 2 to 0, we're getting smaller. We took away 2, so -2. So our slope is +1 over -2. Okay. So if they give you a table, it's good. It's just changing y over changing x. If they don't give you a table, you need to make one. Okay. So just make a little t-chart and then find your change in y over change in x this way. All right. So that was a review of how to find slope. Let's go over how to graph. Okay. If we wanted to graph in slope-intercept form. So let's say they give us the equation y equals 4x minus 2. Right? So we want to be able to graph out a slope-intercept form. Now this was called slope-intercept form, which because slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Right? The b, that's our intercept. That is our starting point. That's our beginning point. Okay, that's why there's a b there. So our intercept, our starting point is at -2 on the y. Okay, always go on your y-axis. So we start at the origin, we start at the center, 0, 0, and we go down to -2. We put a dot. That's where our graph begins. Okay, we're going to go from there. Okay. Then we just have to know what our movement is. What's our line going to look like? So we have to go back in and find our slope. Well, we just said slope is represented by little m. So here's our little m. Okay, so the slope is our 4. It sits right in front of the x. So slope is 4. But we also just said slope is what we know as what's rise over run. So we need a fraction. We need to have a top and a bottom to this. So how did I turn any whole number into a fraction? Put a 1 underneath it. So that gives me my rise and my run. Okay, so I go to my beginning point, my starting point, which you told me was -2. And then from here, our rise is a +4. So we're going to count up 4 spots. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we have a run of 1. And then we run over right 1 time because it's +1. So we go up 4, right 1. And then we just have to send a line through those dots. And that is the graph of y equals 4x minus 2. Okay. So if we had one that looks like this, y equals -2x plus 3. and we want to graph this out of slope-intercept form. Okay, so once again, the last number back here, that is our beginning point. That is our intercept. That's where we start. Okay, so we start at 0. We got to go up to 3 because it's a positive 3 this time. So go up 1, 2, 3, and that's our initial value. Okay, that's where we're going to begin. That's our starting point. But from there, we have to have our movement again. So we need to pull out that slope. Remember, slope always sits right in front of the x. So our slope is -2. But we want it to be a fraction. We have to have a rise and a run. So we need to put that over 1, make it a fraction. Okay? So now, for my beginning point, it tells me to have a movement of down 2, because it's negative. So we're going to go down 2 spots. And then we're going to run either to the right or to the left. Well, it's a positive 1, so we're going to go to the right 1 time. So we put our dot there. We went down 2, right 1. And we're going to send a line through those, maybe. And there is the graph of y equals -2x plus 3. Okay, let's look at 2 more real quick. Okay, these are ones that I'm kind of worried about when you do your assignment. Let's say you have one that looks like this. Let's just do that. Y equals 4x. Okay, we want to graph that. Is that in slope-intercept form? Well, slope-intercept form was y equals mx plus b. Okay, so is it in slope-intercept form? Well, yes. We're just missing the b. The b part's not there, but it is there. It's really just 0. Okay, so our initial value is 0. So we don't go anywhere. We don't have to go up, we don't have to go down. We just start in the center at 0, 0. Okay, then there's no beginning point. Well, what's my movement? What does my slope tell me to do? Well, once again, the slope always sits right in front of your x. Okay, so right now we have a slope of 4. Once again, we want that to be a fraction, so we put it over 1. Okay, so from here, we're going to move up 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, and go right 1. And then there is the graph of y equals 4x. Okay. All right. This is one I also worry about when you guys do, if it says something like this. Y equals x minus 1. Okay, so where is the starting point? Y equals mx plus b. Well, there is an initial value this time, right? The last number, -1. So, yep, we're going to go down to -1, and that's where it's going to start. Okay, but what's the slope? What's our movement? Don't tell me 0. There is a slope. Okay, it's always the number that sits in front of the x. Well, is there a number in front of the x? Yes. There's that imaginary 1 there, right? There's a 1 there. So our slope is 1. So we want to turn that into a fraction, we put it over 1. Right? So be careful with this one. And so we go back to our initial value, which is -1, and then my rise tells me to go up +1, and then we're going to run a +1. So we go up 1 and right 1. And then there is the graph for y equals x minus 1. Okay? So if there's not an ending, be careful. If he's missing, it's going to start at 0. Abby, quiet. And then down here, if there's not a number in front of the x, remember there is a 1 there. Okay? I lied. There's one more I want to look at real quick. Let's say you have something like this. Last one. Y equals 1/3 x plus 2. So it does have an initial value. It has a starting point of 2, right? So we're going to go up to +2, and that's where we're going to start. My slope is 1/3. Well, it already is a fraction. We want that to be a fraction, right? So it's actually better that it is a fraction. Okay, so great, it's a fraction. Let it already be 1. Now, from my starting point of 2, my rise tells me to go up 1, and then I'm going to run right 3 times. So go up 1, right 3 times, and then there's the graph of y equals 1/3 x plus 2. Okay. Sorry, today's video is a little bit longer. I just really want to make sure we have slope down and how to graph out a slope intercept. Appreciate if you went through the whole video before you did your assignment. When you get done, there will be some questions on the Nearpod to answer. That's all you need to do today. And then tomorrow, there's an assignment in Alex just on finding slope and graphing. And then that's it for this stuff on this. And then we have a couple more things to do from here. Hope everybody's doing well. Talk to you later.